And you are looking live at Sold Out Giants Stadium, where today the 15-0 New York Giants will be taking on the 0-15 Washington Commanders. And why are the Washington Commanders 0-15? They suck. And welcome to the Gridiron. Anybody out there at all want to spend a little bit of time with me tonight or watch the replay? Thank you so much. I got about 30 minutes here. Going to go live, hopefully about 30 minutes. Anybody have any comments at all? I actually had a comment last night, so I'm grateful for that. That was the first comment I think ever. So got to start somewhere, guys. But anybody out there at all, thank you so much for just spending some time with me. Now, I got a couple articles I want to go over as far as the preseason game we got going on, obviously, tomorrow night against New England. The first one, only got 3 of these, so you got to make them all count. You got one article here, from Giants.com. It says, 3 questions for the Giants entering the preseason slate. All right. If this week of training camp was any indicator, the Giants are ready to face a fresh opponent in a different uniform. Yes, they are. Beating up on your same guy, play in and play out. It's not a lot of fun. They will do just that on Thursday night in Foxborough, where the Giants and the Patriots kick off their 3-game preseason schedule. This is the first time that they will meet in the opener since 2003. Yeah, usually the Giants don't face the Patriots, not in the opener. Usually it's like the second game or so, whatever. The Giants lead the preseason series 19-11. The two teams first met in preseason in 1971. When they met in 1971, it was the second preseason game. 1970, it was the Boston Patriots. So in 1971, okay, that's when they became the New England Patriots. And actually, when the Giants faced them, it was the Patriots' second preseason game. The Patriots lost to the Minnesota Vikings the first preseason game in 1971. Then in the second game, that they faced the Giants. So that was when the Giants faced them in 1971. That was the second game that the Patriots were ever called the New England Patriots. The Patriots won in 1971. Okay. The first time the Giants ever faced the Patriots was in 1970. That's when they were called the Boston Patriots. The Giants went in the 5th game of the season, went up to Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Harvard University is. So they played Harvard Stadium. The Giants won 16-0. That put the Giants at 2-3. So the Giants go back a long way with the AFL, NFL mergers. When teams merged in 1970. The Giants' first year, they actually faced the Boston Patriots. So they got that. They go back a long way between the two of them, and obviously we have a little bit of a Super Bowl history together, right? But Brian Daboll will be the man on the sideline for the first time as head coach, and Joe Schoen will watch his inaugural roster as general managers start to come to life. After the game, there is exactly 1 month to go until, wow, I didn't realize that. Exactly after the game, exactly 1 month. Wow. Holy cow. Here are 3 questions heading into the preseason. How does the offense perform as Mike Kafka calling plays? Yeah, good question. Daboll has not publicly announced who will call the team's offensive plays this season, but Mike Kafka, the Giants' first season offensive coordinator, assumed that duty throughout the offseason practices. And I have no problem at all with that whatsoever. Kafka, I'm not saying the Giants are going to light the scoreboard up to be the greatest show on turf or not, but Kafka he's under a new system here. He's got Daboll. He's come from Andy Reid, the freaking mad scientist himself. Kafka's smart, intelligent. He may not have been the greatest quarterback in the world, ever to play the game, but you don't have to be a great quarterback to have a great mind, I see absolutely nothing at all wrong with that. Especially, Daboll's going to have to worry about, I said, the offense, the special teams, the defense, situations, when to call timeouts, this, that, and the other thing and all. Now you're going to be having him call offensive plays on his plate too. It might be a bit much, especially for a first-time coach. So I see nothing wrong at all with this. I'm pretty excited, about Kafka calling the plays for the first year offensive coordinator. I look at it as an opportunity, Kafka said, an opportunity not only for myself, but for the players. Everyone out there is working hard to make the team learn and show what they can do and show that they can build themselves a role. So I'm looking to go out and do my job to be the best of my ability and put the guys in the best position to be successful and show what they can do. Dable and Kafka, who came from two of the most potent teams in the AFC, have been charged with improving the Giants' offense and finished 31st in the NFL in scoring, 15.2 points per game. Ungodly. But let's also not forget, all right, who the quarterbacks were. I mean, if the Giants had Patrick Mahomes as quarterback or Josh Allen, yeah. Oh, yeah. Without question, we'd certainly would be improving our offensive stats. But Dable was a coordinator play caller for 9 years, including 8 in the NFL. The last 4 with the high-scoring Buffalo Bills. It's been great learning experience between the situations we call in practice, and Dabes does a great job mixing those types of things in throughout the practice, whether it be in the red zone, 2-minute, backed up, short yardage, said Kafka, who spent the previous 5 seasons as an assistant coach on Andy Reid's staff. I mean, that's being on Andy Reid's staff, especially on the offensive side, shall we say. I mean, that's you can't put a price tag on that education right there. I mean, Andy Reid's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and if you got a chance to be on his staff and learn from him, you're a lucky person. We've thrown so many situations, not only just the coaches and play calls, but also the players, and I'm really proud of how they've responded to those things. Next thing would be, how does Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, and the other rookies fare in their first NFL game? Holding 2 picks in the top 10 for the first time in Giants history, Shane and Dable used major draft capital to lay the foundation for their new regime. They took edge rusher, obviously Kayvon Thibodeau at number 5, and selected Evan Neal 2 picks later at number 7 to man the right tackle spot. That was just the beginning of an 11-player draft haul. Unfortunately, with McKeithen out, now we're down to 10-player. So, which also includes, which I'm very anxious to see, Wan'Dale Robinson in round 2. Many of them are about to get their first taste of a live NFL game. Oh, yeah. I expect it to be fast, aggressive, up-tempo, and violent, just like any other football game would be, Neal said. And he said, he's excited for that. All right. I think Neal's going to do real well for himself. Former offensive lineman Rich Seibert to wide receiver Victor Cruz. Which players will break out? All right. Giants have a history of finding championship pieces from the undrafted ranks. That's true. And they have tended to make a name for themselves in the preseason. The first round of roster reductions begins August 16th. All right, so we got, let's see, Thursday is the the 11th, Friday 12th, 13th, 14th. So next Tuesday would be the 16th. That's when the roster cuts go down, when clubs must get to a maximum of 85 players. So they got to lose 5 guys. Okay, nothing huge, right? Then they must reduce to 80, and then the final 53 on August 30. So, I mean, after the next week's game, right, against the Bengals, they have to go down to 80. So, I mean, after the first 2 games, they got to go down 10 guys. Okay. But then they got to go down an additional 27 after the final game, right? And I think personnel and Daves have done a great job of gathering some smart, tough, and dependable players, defensive coordinator Wink Martindale said. We're going to be on the process of the next preseason games, finding out who's the smartest, who's the toughest, and who's the most dependable. Because all 3 of those factors are what we're going to build on. I like where we're at. All right. I like when hearing Mr. Martindale say that. Then we got some from Giants.com. What to watch for in the preseason opener versus the Patriots. Let's see. The Giants will officially kick off their 2022 NFL season when they travel to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots at Gillette Stadium on Thursday night. The game will represent the first under Coach Dable and Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale. Thomas McGahee was retained from last year's coaching staff. The game against the Patriots will serve as the first time the Giants showcase their new offense and defensive systems. Dable told the media earlier this week that he anticipates all the team's healthy players will get on the field Thursday, although how many snaps remains to be seen. It's a tough situation, because now you only got 3 preseason games. And, the three biggest things, okay, is, maybe not so much in order, but the 3 biggest things is 1, getting your offense, your starters some reps, okay. 2, staying healthy. And then 3, you got to find out who's going to remain on your roster. And it's tough. I mean, because, you only got 3 preseason games. You got to put your starters out there to get them some reps, to get them to work together. And, how many reps, is enough? I mean, if they go out there for 2 series, right, and they go 3 and out 2 times, I mean, that's 6 reps. And you're going to pull them? I mean, that's enough. I mean, your starting team is what you need to have start gelling, So that's a tricky line. But then likewise, you only have so many plays in the ball game. You want to get your second and third stringers out there as well, because you want to see who's going to make your team. And the more plays that you can get a guy, the better feel you can get for, is he going to be on the team or not? So it's not easy. Not easy at all. I mean, obviously when it was maybe 4 games, or when I first started watching football, there was 6 games, 6 preseason games. With 6 preseason games, you can do a lot, And also, one other thing here too is just, you gotta remember, when the game is over, all right, or the 3 games are over, it's just preseason, all right. If we go 1-2, whoopee-doo. If we go 2-1, if we go 0-3, if we go 3-0, whatever, whoopee-doo. It's just preseason. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. 1973, I'll never forget it. The Giants were 6-0 in preseason. 6-0. 1972, they were 8-6. All right. That scored a lot of points. Had a nice the defense was starting to come around. They started getting some guys in there, and then the 1973 to preseason, they go 6-0. And I'm like, dude, here we go. I mean, we're talking playoffs. We're talking, maybe championship game, possibly Super Bowl. I mean, wow. I mean, 1973, I was only 9 at the time, so I didn't know anything, right? But they were 6-0. And then first 2 games of the season, they started off 1-0-1. So within an 8-game stretch, they were 7-0-1. They beat the Oilers the first game of the season, 1973. And then the second game of the season, which happened to be their last game ever in Yankee Stadium, they tied the Eagles on a last-second field goal from Pete Gogolak. They tied them 23-23. So including the preseason, the first 8 games of that year, 1973, the Giants started 7-0-1. They had 12 more games left. The final 12 games of that season, the Giants went 1-11, and they finished the season 2-11-1. So just because if the Giants beat all 3 of these teams 100-0, and they go 3-0, doesn't mean nothing. Okay. The Giants were 6-0 in preseason 1973, and they finished the regular season 2-11-1. So don't get too high, don't get too low. It's just preseason. All right. Thursday's contest is the 31st preseason matchup between the Giants and the Patriots. The Giants lead 19-11. As I said, the first game ever was in 1971 in preseason, and the Patriots won that one. It's just the 9th time that the 2 clubs meet in the preseason opener. The teams met in the preseason finale every year from 2005 to 2019. In last year's preseason matchup, which came in the final week of the preseason, the Patriots took home the 22-20 win. Daniel Jones was 17 out of 22, 135 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Sterling Shepard led the team with 5 receptions for 42 yards. On defense, Blake Martinez intercepted a pass from Cam Newton, while Dexter Lawrence registered a sack on Mac Daddy Jones. Injury report. There we go. While there are no official injury reports in the preseason, Coach Dable announced the following players will likely not suit up against the Patriots. Dane Belton. I heard he fractured, he broke his wrist. I heard he fractured his forearm. I think he's going to require surgery. Or Dane Belton. He's the one with the collarbone. It's the other guy, the tight end, is the one that fractured his forearm or his wrist. So Dane Belton, obviously, if he has his collarbone, obviously, he won't be playing. Hopefully, he might be back very early in the regular season if he's a fast healer. Linebacker Carter Coughlin. Ricky Seals-Jones is missing MIA, missing in action. I have no idea. He had one practice, and he's been out ever since. I have no idea what's going on with him. Wide receiver David Sills, Darius Williams, tight end Andre Miller. He's the one that broke his forearm or fractured his wrist. Offensive lineman Nick Gates, who's coming back from obviously that horrific injury. Marcus McKeithen, he's out, gone. Azeez Ojulari should be back, hopefully, and maybe next week. Might be back, may or may not play in any of the preseason games, but what it's looking like is he might be back maybe sometime next week from his tweaked his hamstring. Offensive tackle Matt Parrott won't play. He's coming back from off-season surgery. Sterling Shepard, he's coming back from off-season surgery as well, too. Additionally, Dable said that there's highly probability that Matt Breida is out, while guard Joshua Zudu is questionable. So we got quite a full list of injured players. Kafka to call plays. Offensive coordinator Mike Kafka will call offensive plays on Thursday's preseason opener. Kafka, the first-time coordinator, came to the Giants from Kansas City, where he served as a quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator the previous 2 seasons. Former quarterback learned under Coach Andy Reid over the last 5 years and excited to call plays for the first time. Oh, yeah. And it just seems like, after the series is over or whatever, if there's something that Dable has a question about, he's just going to go over to him. So, why did you call this play? Or in this situation, don't call this play, try to call or something like that. They're just going to communicate with each other and, work it out. I think it's a real good idea to have Kafka calling the plays. And, of course, he's going to be the first look at Daniel Jones in the new offense, right? The rivals of Dable and Kafka earlier this year brought a new offense to the Giants. The 2 coaches come from successful systems. However, they also have successful quarterbacks, too. And as of right now, the Giants do not. With Dable helping lead Buffalo to one of the NFL's top offenses with one of the top NFL quarterbacks, Josh Allen, right, over the last few years, and Kafka doing the same for Kansas City with one of the, if not the best quarterback in all football, Patrick Mahomes. For Daniel Jones, the offense is the 3rd new system he has to learn in 4 NFL seasons. And it's new offensive coordinator, new system. It's pretty much a make or break season for him. And, I certainly wish him nothing but the best, but it's not easy. He's got to 3 times out of 4 years, he's got to learn a new offensive system. I think Daniel's doing a phenomenal job, Kafka stated this week. He's working. That's one thing about Daniel Jones. He'll work. He's a worker. He'll go in there and he'll put his time in. Whether that's going to translate onto the field, we're going to have to wait and see. But he does put his time in. He's operating the offense. I like what he's doing so far as a leader and trying to get these guys up and push the tempo on the offense. So I like where Daniel's at. We don't know much about don't yet know how much Jones or anyone else on the first-team offense will play in Thursday's game. Yes, it's tough. Especially with like the offensive line, you want to get them together, get them gelling, playing together. The more reps they can get, the better they are. And if you give them 2 series, say they get 4 or 5 plays on the first series, 4 or 5 maybe plays on the same. It's 8 or 9 plays. Is that enough? Yeah. Then we have the rookies debut. While a few players are likely to miss Thursday's contest, the game against the Patriots will serve as the NFL debut for most of the team's rookies. There are currently 24 rookies on the 90-man roster, many of whom are set to take the field at Gillette Stadium. Both safety Dane Belton and offensive lineman Marcus McKeithen will be sitting out the preseason opener. Yeah. I mean, Marcus McKeithen will be sitting out the preseason. I mean, his season's over with. I'm not exactly sure about that one, but unfortunately, guard Joshua Ezeudu is questionable. But all other members of the Giants' 11-man 2022 draft class are likely to take the field in some fashion on Thursday, in addition to the undrafted rookies. For the first-round picks, Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, it will be the first time the two get to take the field and go full contact in the NFL, something the latter told reporters he can't wait for. Yeah. Evan Neal, he sounds like he's ready. Let me tell you. I expect it to be fast, aggressive, up-tempo, and violent, just like any other football game would be. I'm excited for that. So, tell you what, I love the dude's attitude, man. Really, really love his attitude. There's going to be first time we're going to get a chance to see Wink Martindale's blitz-heavy defense. Now, they're not going to also show you all, they're going to keep it somewhat vanilla, especially the offense, because they don't want to start showing all kinds of plays or all kinds of fancy blitzes. So they're going to keep it kind of vanilla-like, so you don't want people out there getting stuff on, on tape, and in preseason, so they're going to keep things kind of, as I said, kind of vanilla. But perhaps the biggest addition to the Giants made on defense this offseason was bringing on Wink Martindale as units coordinator. Martindale spent the last 4 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens in the same position, where he led their defense to top 5 finishes in both points and yards allowed 3 times in the top 5. So, and the Giants, Giants man-wise, I mean, we may not have the, best personnel in the defense, but, we got some players on the defensive side too. And if he can do that with the Baltimore Ravens, you got to be pretty excited. You got to be very excited. Through the first few weeks of training camp, numerous defensive players that have expressed their excitement about playing in Martindale's blitz-heavy scheme. The system allows many of them to line up in multiple spots along the defense, which in turn helps keep the opposing offense on its toes. With the preseason opener finally here, Martindale likes what he sees from his unit during the first 2 weeks of camp. I'm excited. I'm happy with where we are right now defensively, the defense coordinator exclaimed. I think personnel and Dabes have done a great job of gathering some smart, tough, and dependable players. We're going to be on the process of the next 3 preseason games, finding out who's the smartest, who's the toughest, and who's the most dependable. Yeah, because you can, your best ability overall is your availability. So you have to be, you got to be healthy. You got to be tough. You got to be, so. But they're going to give up some. They're going to give up some big plays. Hopefully not too many, but with your all or nothing approach, will be some big plays given up throughout the season, probably by the New York Giants. But that'll give and take. You get some extra pressure on the quarterback. Maybe you get an extra few hits on the quarterback. Maybe you get an extra few sacks throughout the season. Possibly you might give up 2 or 3 long big plays because you got one-on-one coverage and your guy gets beat, turns into a touchdown for the other team. But also likewise, you might get 2 or 3 bad passes thrown up, and you might wind up picking them off, maybe taking 1 or so of them back to the house because you put too much pressure on the other team. So it's going to be very, very interesting without a question. You got the revamped O-line, with Neal and, all those guys are healthy. All right, Feliciano's back. You got Lemieux at left guard. You got Glowinski at right guard. You got Neal. You got Thomas. Everybody's relatively healthy. Okay. A lot of where the unhealthiness is on the offensive line is the backups, which is not, not extremely good either. But, at least your Fab 5 are relatively healthy and ready to go. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. And as I said, I mean, the best thing for them is playing together. The more reps they get, the better they get to play together, the better. So it's a tricky thing. I mean, you put them in there for 2 series. As I said, if they get 8, 9, 10 snaps, I mean, okay, that helps them a little bit, but was it clear after his hire that one of General Manager Joe Schoen's biggest priorities of the offseason was to improve the offensive line? The Giants signed Mark Lewinsky, offensive line John Feliciano in free agency, and then spent their first, third, and fifth round picks on Evan Neal, Joshua Zudu, and Marcus McKeithen, respectively, to help bolster the offensive line. The only returning player that saw a significant time last season was Andrew Thomas. And of course, Shane Lemieux would have saw a significant time if he hadn't hurt himself. All right. It's funny. Yeah. You got Andrew Thomas in his 3rd season, is now the longest tenured starting offensive lineman. Simply amazing. While the unit has been working on growing its chemistry during camp, Thursday's game is the first chance for them to go up against real competition from another team. Their position coach has a few specific things he would like to see out of the O-line in the preseason opener. I always wanted to see improvements in the use of the techniques, offensive line Bobby Johnson told reporters. But more importantly, I want to see improvements in the communication and always ramping up high-level effort. So for me, I just want to see the guys communicate, and I want to see them give max effort, and that won't ever change. I always want to see them stay at a high level from practice to practice, game to game, year to year. I always want to see be as high as it possibly can be. Now, he said that, I mean, he's always said he always wants to know what he's going to get every day out of every player. He doesn't want a guy one day gives kind of lollygags one day, next day he gives max effort, and he goes out in the game and gives out max effort, and then the next 2 days in practice kind of lollygags around. He wants the same high level, high tempo, effort every time. And then we have the young secondary. Since the conclusion of the 2021 season, the Giants parted ways with several experienced members, all right, of their secondary. Most notably, James Bradbury and Logan Ryan, but also Jabrill Peppers. I mean, I love Jabrill, but he was a liability in coverage. So the moves that paved the way for some of the Giants' young defensive backs to earn more playing time and spot in the starting lineup. On the team's first unofficial depth chart of the season, Aaron Robinson was listed as the 2nd starting corner opposite Adoree Jackson, while Julian Love joined Xavier McKinney as the starting safeties. Meanwhile, 3rd-year corner Darnay Holmes was listed as the team's starting nickel corner. So we pretty much have our Fab 5, okay? Wink Martindale shared with the media that he has loved the way the first-team secondaries competed and started off training camp. Now the defensive coordinator wants to see the unit build on its depth, a message their position coach reiterated on Tuesday. Now it'll be interesting to see who's going to be the 3rd safety, because there's going to be times out there they're probably going to have 3 safeties in there as well, too. So since Belton is now injured, okay, who's going to be that 3rd safety that they're going to have out there? And then I believe Yusuf Corker is going to have the green dot. So maybe when he's on the 2nd string defense as a safety, he might have the green dot. He might be calling the plays for the defense. Let's see. I think that the whole group is really working, said defensive backs Jerome Henderson. The first group has stayed together most of camp and have played at a pretty high level. We got to get the 2nd group and 3rd group to play up to the standard that the first group is playing with. And that's their growth, and my challenge is to get that 2nd group, because we're going to have guys in the 2nd and 3rd group that are going to play meaningful snaps for us, and got to get those guys ready to go and playing at the same high level so there's no drop off. Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to see them Thursday night and see how many of them do when the lights are on. You have what you think they're going to do, and sometimes guys get in and they play better. Sometimes, quite frankly, guys get in and they shrink. So I hope that this group will get in and play better when you look at your 2nd and 3rd group. Yeah, sometimes sometimes that happens. Scouting the Patriots. We don't know yet which Patriots will be suiting up for this preseason order, but let's take a quick look at some of the New England's key players. On offense, It starts with Mac Daddy Jones, who completed 67.6% of his passes for 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions, leading the Patriots to a 10-7 record in his rookie campaign last season. Damian Harris, 202 rushes, 929 yards, and 15 TDs last year, returns as their top rusher, while Jacoby Myers and newcomer DeVonta Parker are likely to serve as the Pats' top 2 receivers. On defense, Matt Judon led New England with 12.5 sacks in 2021 and is joined up front by veteran Lawrence Guy and second-year lineman Christian Barmore. Yeah, Christian Barmore, he was a beast at Alabama. I wanted the Giants to draft him. But it is, especially because when they lost Dalvin Tomlinson, right? I think, man, if they lose Dalvin Tomlinson, but they drafted Christian Barmore, then they can maybe have that good defensive front once again. But it is what it is. Patriots secondary consists of several experienced vets, including safeties Adrian Phillips, who had 4 interceptions in 2021, and Devin McCourty and Kyle Duggar. All right. So that's it. So I will be back. It's been about 30 minutes here. Okay. I will be back tomorrow night after the game is over, and we'll do a recap of the first preseason game. And guys, we're off and running. It's 2 more games after this and then the regular season starts. Before you know it, we'll be lining up in Tennessee. So anybody out there spent any time here at all watching me, I greatly appreciate anybody going to watch the replay of this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just taking some time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there, all right? And go Giants! Woo!